Welcome everybody to day 11 of Foundation to Programming. Good to see you guys today. Uh, we're gonna go ahead and move forward on the curriculum. Um, I think we dwelled on classes and objects for a little bit. You know, we uh we were being a dead horse from beyond the grave, so it's time to move forward. Uh, And on top of that, just the issues that some people have been having with the Pygame module. So I think it's just better to move forward. Uh, but yeah, we still got some people coming in. Um, so we'll give them a minute. We're going to continue on with the curriculum. The next lesson is going to be um in your repo. Uh, it's technically lesson 11. The slides are not updated, so it will be slides of lesson 10. Just so you guys just so you're aware. If you're trying to figure out where like lesson 11 is and it's not matching, the slide's still lesson 10, but in your repo it should be lesson 11. So go ahead and get that ready to go. But yeah, okay. Well, while you guys are setting it up, does anyone have anything they want to discuss? Anything that they have some questions about? Uh, they're not unsure. Um, Nothing at all. Before I close classes and objects and move forward. Okay. Alrighty. Go ahead and share my screen. Uh, Lesson 10. Does it show the slideshow for you guys as well? It's like in full screen.
Yep, I see it.
I should have done this from the beginning, man. Mistake. Uh, yeah, so lesson 10, reading and writing files. So if I'm going to get back to some regular code, learning some new material. I believe Sam's still just listening and whatnot. Also, I do apologize. I did not load up yesterday's video um onto YouTube. It's being updated now. Oh man, I closed it. Oop. Well, I'm gonna have to re-upload it. So you guys will have two different videos tomorrow morning. All right. So I do apologize. Um Typically I try to do it either the night prior or the night of, or the next morning, but I had to sleep early and then I had an appointment for my VA all day today. And that took forever. So yeah, I didn't get to it, so I do apologize. But yeah, moving forward, lesson 10, reading and writing files. That needs to be updated. Read and write files. Files. They are ubiquitous in computing, having a place to store data that persists and is retrievable and it's very valuable. All right, so there are two kinds of files that you're going to encounter. One is going to be your text files, which is your human readable, like your application.py, your .py files, right? Your JavaScript files. And what you're going to learn today, your CSV files, your text files. These are readable, right? And then you have those binary files that usually are not human readable, like a JPEG file. Right? JPEG, maybe uh an MP3 file too. You probably wouldn't be able to read the code on that. Um, but those files, it's like a bunch of ones and zeros and just random stuff. It's unreadable to you guys. We're gonna be covering text files specifically, right? And even more specific, it's gonna be CSV files. CSV files are very commonly used, especially with Python and databases, because they're great for keeping track of data. And we're going to talk about how to read through them and write directly into a CSV file. Yes.
You broke up. You said they're really good for what? I'm sorry. You
Oh,
said they're
for
really good for.
large pieces of data. So they're
Oh,
great for like databases. For like grabbing a large amount of data, parsing through the data and whatnot, and pretty much structuring your databases. They're great for that. A lot of websites out there will actually have uh what you call it, CSV files. For example, um, what's a good one? What can we check out? Give me a popular. Well, would have a large amount of data. Let's see, Austin population. Maybe there's a website for it. Mm, there we go. Census. That's what I was thinking about. I just couldn't think of the word. English is my second language, right? So like website like Census, they typically track a lot of information. And if we're lucky, this is the specific website I'm thinking about. We're actually able to download some of this information. Uh, this website's trash. Let's check out profiles. Well, a lot of this information is open to the public. Um, like let's see. I'm trying to find a good one for you guys. Mm, I probably should have. Oh, okay, let's check out Yahoo Finance. Yahoo Finance. I wonder if we can find all their data. Let's see more. Um, let's see. If we go to historical data, if you guys see historical data, let me know. We're looking for data. Science, climate change, finance, markets, news, screeners, personal finance, maybe industries. Bro, why don't you open up? Jesus. Taxes, balance transfer, cashback. Let's see. Uh, historical data. Trying to find their CSV, bro. What if we go to their markets? Here you go. So I'm not a stock person. Are any of you guys into stocks? The stock market? So I believe we can go into like NASDAQ. What is Nancy Pelosi like? Nvidia? Where's it at? Hmm,
That
I
was a
don't know
good
much.
one.
I'm not big with these things, so I don't know. So let's check out historical data. And then after historical data, let's see. Oh, we can download this. Download. Ooh, look at whatever this is. It's a date. All right, I don't know Roman numerals, but it says .csv. So I was able to grab all the data from a specific date from May 21 of last year and May 21 of this year, and I was able to grab a CSV file, which we'll open in a second, that has what you call it, different. What are these called? Not rows, columns, right, of different data. So let's open this up. And what is a CSV file? A CSV file is a comma separated value type of file, essentially just kind of like an Excel spreadsheet that's broken off into columns and rows. And this is what it looks like. And we were able to get the data for over a year worth of different information. And this is kind of what I was trying to get at of how it's great for large pieces of data for databases, right? And it formats it really nice for you. So that was kind of what I was trying to get at. We were able to download directly from their website the CSV data vault is. We could have even probably gone further. Let's say, I wonder if we can go back a year. Oh, 5 years. Sweet. All right, download. Is it the same? Oh no, it's significantly larger. Wow, look at all that. That's a lot of data, boys. A lot of data. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And to be able to receive that much data and have it formatted, that's what's awesome about CSV files, right? And we're gonna learn how to read, write these CSV files, manipulate them for our purpose, right? So here is gonna be a very rough syntax of how CSV files are manipulated, right? So typically you have to start by opening the file with the correct path name. And there are two different ways of opening it, right? There's a way that you have to open and then manually close it. And there's a way where you open it and it closes on its own and you don't have to manually do anything, which is typically the way that most people do it. This method here is the one where you have to manually close it yourself. So the syntax for opening the CSV file is seen here on line 1, right? They're using the command open and then open and close parentheses. Now, one thing you do not see in here is that you have to import CSV, right? The CSV in Python is a module in itself. So before you're able to use these commands like open and whatnot, or closing CSV files and using the different parameters, you have to import the CSV module. So keep that in mind. So it doesn't do you any justice because it's not shown here, but you have to import CSV. Afterwards, you use the syntax open and open close parentheses. And the first argument you pass in is the name of the file, or essentially the correct path to the file. If it's not within the same directory, right? So the first argument or parameter will be the correct path to the file. The next argument you give it, and these two are essentially all you really need. There's other arguments and parameters that it can take, but we're not getting too in-depth into it. But the second one essentially is how you want to, or what you want to do with this file. How do you want to open it? Do you want to open and be able to read through it, or do you want to open and be able to write, right, by using the W command, or the A to append something to it, right? So there are different commands, and depending on what your intent is, will dictate which command you use. But they do that, and by opening that file, they're also saving it into this variable called infile, which then allows them to manipulate that variable as needed, which you see here on line 3, right? They do line is equal to infile.readLine, which allows them to read the first line within this file. They then use the .strip method, and the reason for that is because naturally these CSV files have a space at the end, right? Or essentially a space that's supposed to help it break up the rows, which you don't normally see. And if you don't strip it, you won't visually see the space, but there will be a space there if you try to add something else to it. So that's just common knowledge that you typically want to strip the spaces from the left and right of them, right? So they use a dot strip that strips any spaces from the sides, and then they print it. Right now, once they're done with this file, here's what you see here on line 7 is that they're manually closing it using the dot close. Up here, they opened it, and by opening it, they saved it into this variable. So the file is saved into this variable. So they're able to call that file and then use a dot close to close it back up. I've never had to really deal with other people using the same CSV file, so I haven't really seen no repercussions of leaving something open. So I don't know if they have access or not. Typically, I'm pretty sure from what I've been told is that it can cause issues from other people trying to use the same file. So you typically want to make sure that you close it. I haven't really messed around with too many CSV files with other people, so I don't know. All CSV files I've worked with are just individually the ones I have on my own computer. Cool. What if I want to read all the lines in my file? Well, here is the syntax that I was talking about that will close your file automatically. It's the with syntax. So instead of saving it into a variable and whatnot, they start the syntax with the word with open and close parentheses. They pass in two arguments, the correct path of the file, which for this is just dog.txt, and then the parameter to read, which is the R, and then they save it as in file, right? So instead of manually creating the variable and then doing equals and then open like it did here, right? They directly assign this file into the variable in file. They did as in file. So you're doing the exact same thing, right? Only difference is by doing it this way, it manually closes on its own after it reads through the code and it does what it has to do, right? So this saves you the hassle of having to remember to close it if you forget. But yeah, cool. So difference between both of these is this close. Yes, Eric.
I was just gonna say the difference here though is this one's reading through every single line in that file, right? The other one used read line, so it just read the first line, but since this is looping through every single line in the file, it's gonna go through all of them.
Yes.
Right.
So that is the difference in what they're doing. But I was talking specifically about the difference of how it was written to start it up. Right?
Yeah, no, I got you. I just want to
okay.
make sure I understand
Yes.
the read line method correctly.
Correct. Yes, correct. This one, just the read line method just returns the very first line from the file. Here, after they open the file, they loop through every single line, printed the line, and as you see, they still use the dot string method to remove the space at the end. This is the text file, right? And it effectively printed out every single one. How, if you're writing into the text file, what do you think you would have to do after every item? If you wanted to create a new line, if you wanted to format it, how would you do that? You'll probably have to put the /n, right? To create that manual line. Just keep that in mind, right? Because if you're trying to write directly to a text file and you didn't put a /n to start a new line, all these items will all be in the same line, which is why they know that. So they have to strip that space that's creating that new line. That's just how the text files are formatted. What if I try to read a file that's not there? Try with open. Okay, actually I have not tried this. I do know if you try to write into a file that does not exist, it will create the file for you. I wasn't sure about reading it, but so here they're trying to open something and read through a file, and they have the accept file not found error that they're able to catch. But if you're trying to write into a file that does not exist, it'll create it for you. It won't give you an error message. Just keep that in mind. All right, so we're gonna write into a file. Let's go ahead and open our VS Code. We are on lesson 11. I'll go over here to my example, practice examples. CSV, no, read and write dot py. Okay. All right. So, we can create our CSV file. On the left side, I have the read and write.py, but I'm also going to create a cat.csv. And now inside the CSV file, I'm gonna keep it empty. Let me it should be fine actually. Cat.csv. I'm going to save it. It's gonna be empty. Now, within my read and write.py, I'm going to create that cat list. Siamese, Manx. I've never heard of any of these. Who's got cats?
I
Good.
got two.
Oh man. I'm not a cat guy. They scratch a lot. So here is my cat list, and then we can do with open and then the name of the file. So I'm gonna do cats.csv. I want to write into the file. And when you say as, it doesn't this could be anything, right? You're creating a variable essentially, right? You're opening this up and assigning it to a variable. It doesn't matter what you want to call it, right? I can call it cat file. It don't matter. With open my CSV file, I'm gonna write it. I'm gonna write into it, and I want to call it cat file, and I'm gonna do for cat in my cat list. And then I'm gonna call the cat file dot write. I'm going to write into it the cat, right? And what do we see here on line 5? They're doing cat plus /n. Why is that?
New line you were just talking about. You want to
Correct. The new line, right? So
not write it in
Well,
one line.
we want to be able to put each cat on its own individual line. If we do not add the /n, it's going to put it in the same line, and it'll be close together. There won't even be a space. It'll look ugly. So there we go. Now keep in mind, there's nothing in the cats.csv. I'm going ahead and run this. No news is good news. Let's check the cat CSV file. That's embarrassing. Okay, so that didn't work. Let me change this up to cats.txt. Run this. What in the heck? What's going on? Oh, why? Okay, so it did work. So we see down here, it created it on both the CSV and the TXT when I ran it both times. But I don't know why it ignored the one I already had. That's so weird. I know, biggie. But maybe because I didn't specify the direct path. I had created the CSV file already, but when I ran it, it created another one, and it created outside of my file path. I don't. Oh, that's why. I'm dumb. I wasn't in the same directory. My bad. CD lesson. What is this? 10? No, 11. Oh no, it's not. That's what I get for messing around with the run button. I got too comfortable from the Pi game. Let's put this back to CSV. Let's rename this CSV. Okay. Now, this should work. Let's close this up. Python, read and write.py. Okay, I ran it. There we go. I was in the wrong directory, so it was having some weird functionality. But yeah, so it effectively wrote into my CSV file. Now, what happens if I don't have this file and I try to write in there? Let's go ahead and delete that. And let's run this again. Okay, I ran it. We see here a CSV file appeared, right? I had just deleted. You guys saw that. Open it up. It's in there, right? So, as mentioned before, if your file doesn't exist and you're trying to write into something that does not exist, it'll create it for you, right? Now, what did we do? Read and we try to pronounce. Actually, I'll do that later. I'm getting off topic. But yeah, cool. Simple enough. Okay. Moving on. Everything in a file is a string. So you must convert all integers or floats to strings before writing them to a file. All right, make sure you add a new line character to the end of it so each number is on a separate line. All right, code along with me. Let's get rid of this code. And then let's run this again. So with open nums dot, I'm gonna do CSV. You can do TXT or CSV, it don't matter. We're gonna write into this file. I'm gonna call it as out file for num in range of 10. I want to write into the file. I have to be converted to a string. It could be the num, and then ensure I add the new line. Okay. Right, the file does not exist. Let me go ahead and run my thing again. We see here a new CSV file was created. I open it up and it's in here. Now, what happens if I do not add that /n? Let's see. I'm gonna run that bad boy again. Let's look at it. And yeah, so as mentioned before, without that /n, every single number was put right after the next on the exact same line with no spacing, right? So that's why we formatted the way that we do. Go back to how we had it. Cool. What if we don't add the string? We'll see. If we don't add the strings to it and we try to add it, it's gonna give you an error, right? Unsupported operand type for int and string. So if you get this error, now you know why. Cool, cool, cool. JSON. Yeah, remember JSON? Jason? JSON? JSON standing for JavaScript Object Notation. Although this format came from JavaScript, it's actually language independent. This format allows you to exchange data between different computer languages, pay attention because you will be seeing a lot of this notation. Absolutely true. JSON is very popular because it's interchangeable between different languages. Read and write JSON. So here, very similar to text files. They're importing JSON. You need to import JSON so you have access to these commands. They import JSON. They have the list, the cat list as before. They're opening a cats.json file. Notice that it ends with the JSON. It's not a CSV file. It's not a TXT file. So it requires JSON commands because it is a JSON file, right? And they're writing into it. Now, the way that you write into a JSON file is by using the .dump method, right? So they call it the JSON module. They use the .dump method. They're dumping the entire cat list into the file within it, right? And then to reading there, the JSON.load, right? So what is this doing? It's essentially converting it, right? Using the .dump and .load converts it from like JSON to a Python object. For the .load, you're grabbing the JSON data and you're converting it to a Python readable object, or I'm sorry, dictionary, right? We call it dictionary, not an object in Python, right? So that's what the .load and the .dump method are doing. You're essentially just converting it to the specific language that we're using. Cool. Let's see it actually. Yeah, because they don't show you the information there. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and import JSON. We have our cat list like before. I ain't writing this. I mean, I guess I'll write it, whatever. Cat list equal to Siamese, Manx, Abyssinian, Savannah. What's your cat names, Joseph?
One is Goku and the other is Buddha.
Goku. Okay, so we have our cat list with open. We're gonna open up our JSON file, which does not exist, but we already learned that we can create it when we write into it, cats.json. We're gonna go to and right inside of it as out file, right? As out file, and then using JSON.dump method, pass in the entire cat list, and then where do you want to dump it into? Into the file itself. So let's run this. Open up this. Let's check out the JSON file that we have. And it converts it into a JSON format, right? JSON format. And then we can do with open, get the cats.json. Now we're going to read as in file, restored list is equal to JSON.load in file, and let's print out restored list. Here we go. What happens if we don't do this? Oh, never mind. You can't do it here. No. All right, but cool. We loaded it in and then we printed out into restored list. Too easy. That's how you grab information from a JSON file. You're gonna be working a lot with JSON, opening JSON files and getting stuff from it. So make sure you guys do pay attention to this. And hint, hint, CSV files will be part of your first assessment. So getting like a large file of data and parsing through it and grabbing stuff, just be aware of that. So, you don't have to be CSV experts, but know how to manipulate it. To be honest with you guys, I got to the first assessment and I don't remember going over CSV files. I don't know what the heck I was doing that day that I did not remember the material. So I was so freaking lost. Like the first day, I was like, yo, what is this? Like, how am I supposed to open this up? I was so lost. I think the hardest part, what messed me up most was trying to read the information from the CSV file and format it to do what I needed to do in the assessment with it. Which I won't talk too much about that, but it was enough to trip me out for a whole day because I did not understand CSV files. They're not hard, but you know, if you don't know how to work with them, it would trip you up. So just feel comfortable. Cool.
Sort of unrelated question. How much time do you get for the assessment? It's not like you just jump into a Zoom call with an instructor and they're like, okay, do something. It sounds like you have at least a day or more to accomplish whatever the assignment is. Is that
They're typically given on a Friday and due the Monday.
okay?
Yeah. Some are more intense than others, but to each their own. But yeah, it's typically you have like a whole weekend. What's cool too is that you guys will have TAs. So you have to be broken into groups. People will be assigned a teacher assistant as well that will essentially live in your Zoom room, and he'll always be available. Usually, if you have a good TA. Nothing against my TA. I don't think he understood his responsibilities until like halfway through the cohort. When I wouldn't say complain, but just kind of voice our thoughts, like, you know, where is so and so? And they're like, what do you mean? I thought he's supposed to be in your Zoom room. It's like he hasn't been here for like a month. Uh, and yeah. And then he finally started showing up. While everyone had like their TA in their room all day long and helping them out, like it was just the blind lead the blind. It was tough. But yeah, and they're typically always available too. When I was TAing, I I had nothing better to do. You know, I was like in the process of leaving the army, or I had just gotten out actually. So I was just sitting in my house. So I was there in the weekend, just in call with, you know, the group I was assigned to helping out. So you know, they will help out as best as possible without giving you any answers. You know, kind of like helping you out with the curriculum or the subject, I guess. If you struggle with something, then you can go back and then implement what you've learned. But uh, we we make it so you guys have the best chance at succeeding, right? No one wants you guys to fail. Like, you know, the it's not like freaking going to range school and then trying to weed out, you know, half the people, right? Like trying to 42 club you or 43 club, you know, on the push-ups just because they want to get rid of a large. No, we're not trying to do that. We would like for everyone to graduate. All right.
I think me and
So-
you are the only one who understood the 42 club thing.
Yeah. But yeah,
Yikes.
so just be aware that no one's trying to get you to fail. All right, so moving forward. All right, so your first little assignment on your own, it's 609. So take about 10 minutes, try it out. It's a fairly simple assignment, I believe. Reroute. Is it rewrite? Yeah. Yeah. Google it. I didn't have anyone you know, singing me this song when I was a kid, so I had to Google this freaking song. But essentially, you want to write the first 4 lines of the nursery rhyme. Mary had a little lamb. Which each line being written on a different line of the file, right? You want to essentially write it into a CSV file. Then you write that code that opens the file and reads it, printing out each line as it goes. Use the strip method to strip all the new line characters. Oh, and there's another one here. So it's 2 assignments essentially. So do the first one to the next, excuse me, first 10 minutes, take a 10-minute break, and then come back and do the next one. Sound good? All right, cool. I'll be here, so just let me know. I'll be behind the camera, just my camera will be off. So just raise your hand or say something, and I'll help you guys out if you guys get confused. All right. Back to the curriculum. So you guys were assigned the read and write assignment. The first one was pretty straightforward. You had to open a file named Mary.txt and write to that file the first 4 lines of the nursery rhyme, Mary Had a Little Lamb. The way that I went about it, and you guys could have done this differently. I just created this list with all 4 lines within this list. There is no specification of how I went about it, just to make sure you write all 4 lines. So a list of 4 different lines. We open up the Mary.txt with the W parameter, allowing us to write into our Mary file. And then I loop through the nursery rhyme list, pretty straightforward, very similar to how we did it with the cat. And then wrote into it using the dot write method with line, adding the /n for the new line. As we see here, empty text file. And then when we run this, where am I at? I don't revive. Okay. Run the file. And we see here now the Mary.txt is added within our text file. Pretty straightforward, very simple, very similar to the example shown previously. So this one shouldn't have been too difficult. Next one was to create a dictionary that maps the numbers 1 through 13 to the names William, so on and so forth. Write the code that writes the dictionary to a JSON file and reads it as well. So let's check that out. For record, the text file is currently empty. So come back here. Let me go ahead and comment this out. Here is my code for it. I create the dictionary right here right out the bat. And I'm gonna show you a different way that we can also do this. But here is my dictionary with the keys being the numbers, with the values being the names. I imported the JSON module on top, and then went through here, opened up the text file that I wanted to open up, which was a .txt with the right parameter, assigned it as file, as names file, using the JSON.dump. It took in what you want to dump in there into what file. And here we see another parameter, which I don't know if you guys used, but you are able to give it an indentation, right? And this pretty much formats your dictionary for you whenever you convert it to JSON. So if you remember back to the API when we were receiving JSON data back, and it was like nice formatted JSON data where it was like indented so you can see the nested types of lists and dictionaries. That indentation allows you to kind of format it to make it a little bit more readable. And then I also went ahead and opened it up and loaded up to see how it looked like printed back up using the JSON.load. Right, so if we run this, we see it printed out here. But let's check out the names.txt. This is what it looks like. I don't think, if I remember correctly, maybe this didn't do too much on this one because there wasn't a lot of nested stuff. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so yeah, it did do something. All right, if you guys didn't add the indentation, you guys probably got this correct. Is that what you guys got? So now we see with the indent, it formats it for you, which how typically your JSON files are going to look like whenever you do get an immersive program. So if you're wondering how they did that, using the indent parameter. Now, let's talk about a different way of doing this. There is a specific method for dictionaries when using your CSV file, which we will cover. Let's go ahead and delete this again. In the read write, you can create something like what you call it, like this, where you create a dictionary. But if you want to format it into a CSV file and not a JSON file, I'm gonna show you guys how to do that. All right, so we have the dictionary. Let's go ahead and comment this part out. And then we're going to reformat this dictionary. And the way we're going to do it will be, let's say, we're going to make a new dictionary here. We're going to call this my dict. And it's going to be a list of dictionaries. And just for a disclaimer, I am using some code previously, which I'm reading off of, so you guys know where I'm getting this from. And this dictionary is going to hold certain data. It's going to hold the name of a person, their branch, what year they are, and their college GPA, or I don't know what CGPA is. I'm not college educated. But this data has CGPA. Who knows what that is?
Cumulative GPA.
Okay.
GPA.
See, I'll tell you, I'm not college educated, man. Born and raised in the mean streets of Brownsville, Texas. So I don't know much about this stuff. All right, so yeah, so in this, I'm going to copy the data because it's a lot to try to code out myself or type actually. I don't want to type it in. So this is what it looked like. It's essentially a list of different dictionaries, right? And in this dictionary, we have key value pairs, branch, and then the branch they're in. They have their cumulative GPA, right? With the GPA as their value, the name of the person, and the year. Now, how do we format this in the CSV file? Well, on one variable, we have the dictionary, which is essentially a list of dictionaries. And then you would create something like this called fields, right? And within this fields, you would essentially format how you want your CSV file to look like. So if you guys recall the CSV file that we downloaded from the stock from Yahoo, right? They have a form of headers, right? The column and what the columns were named, and then they had all the information neatly organized it. And this is how you would organize it. So you would create your headers, right? Which we're going to call fields here, or we could just call headers. Now we keep it as fields. It's fine, whatever. Fields. And then you start naming them of how you want to organize them. We're going to do it by name first. The next field we're going to want to have is going to be branch. The next here on our CSV file, we want it to have year. And next is going to be the cumulative GPA. right? Now, the file name, you can declare yourself or you can add it in line. It don't matter. We're gonna declare it here. We're gonna call this university. It has to be a string. University records.csv. That's gonna be the name of the file when we create it, right? Then we're gonna do with open, just like we did before. Because we already declared what we want to call a file name, we could just add the variable here we declared, which is gonna be file name. I'm going to write into this file. I'm going to say as CSV file. All right. As mentioned before, you can name it whatever you want, but just to ensure that you guys are aware, we're creating a CSV file that we're trying to format from a dictionary, create headers, and then organize it neatly. Right. And once we open up our file, we're going to want to create our CSV dict writer object. So we're going to say writer is equal to CSV.dict writer. Right, this is the method that we will use. Let me import CSV. I'm getting an error here because I don't have the CSV methods. So importing CSV. Now we see this is an official method from the CSV module, right? And this is going to take certain arguments. The first argument it's going to take is the file that we declared, which above here we declared it as CSV file. So we want to write into this file, CSV file. And then the second argument is going to be field names. All right, so field names, right? We see here. Hold on, let me lock my door because my kid just got home. Field name is equal to fields, which we declared above, right? So this is going to assign the fields that we created into the field name. And it's going to automatically know that's going to be the first line that we want. And it's going to create those columns for us, right? And then once we have that, we're going to do writer, where we're calling that object we created up here. All right, this is essentially an object. And then we're going to do write header, right? So we have a couple methods here. We have header, write row, and write rows, right? Write header will essentially create that header for us. Write row will create one row. We could pass it an argument being just a single row, we'll write that row for us, or we could pass an argument which will be a list of rows, and it'll take all the rows within that list and format it for us, right? We have a list of multiple rows, right? Each row being a dictionary. So we're probably gonna want to use write rows plural way for our my dict right here, right? So first and foremost, we're gonna write the header, the write header. That's going to create the header for us. And then, hold on, give me a second. I'm so sorry. Stem. Okay, I'm back. I do apologize for that. So this method here is going to write the header for us. And then after, and where's it getting it from? Well, we passed the field name, right? So it's tracking, hey, I'm grabbing the object that I declared, and whatever argument that I take in, this is an object with certain methods. The method has is write header. Right, this is a pre-built method that this object has that we imported, and it knows that the argument it takes is going to be from the argument we passed in above here whenever we created this object. All right, so if you're wondering, how does it know, Roger, what header to write? Well, when we created that object, right, because essentially it's a class, we create an object of the dict writer class. We passed in the argument, which is field name, and we passed the fields for its field name. So it's going to grab that and add it to our header. And then we're going to do writer, call the object again. We're going to use the write rows method that it has. And then Here we're actually gonna have to pass in manually what list of rows we're trying to add, because at no point so far have we passed in any kind of rows. We declared it, but when we instantiated the object, we didn't pass in any arguments. We're gonna pass it in here. It's gonna be my dict. Now, if done correctly, when we run this, it should create our CSV file. So we're gonna go ahead and run this. Field name, my bad. I forgot an S. Mistype this, CPA. I'm all messed up. There we go. No errors here. So we run it, no issues. Let's check out on the left side. We see that they created the code created the CSV file for us with the right method, so we can open it up. And we see our new CSV file with the name, branch, year, and CGPA at the very top as a header. And then its respective data formatted, and it's even color coded to assist you on reading it, right? Pretty cool.
Yeah, would you mind dropping that my dict in Slack?
Sure, yeah. Let me take this. Let me comment this out. And this is essentially how they created all that data, that whole CSV file. This is how they were able to format it into that CSV file using Python code, which is pretty cool. Snipping tool, new. My dick example. There you go. I saved it, and then I'll drop in the Slack. But that's essentially how that was created for you guys. That whole CSV file that we downloaded from Yahoo, that's how they did it. So it gives you an explanation of how you're able to format data from Python into a CSV file. So yeah, pretty cool, right? All right, let me just drop this real quick, and then we can move on. Might take example. And dropped. But yeah, that's how that's done. And this can be found from some little research, right? This is what I was reading off of, so you guys are aware. Geeks for Geeks is another good website besides W3 Schools. Being able to check out the different ways of doing stuff. This one takes not a dictionary, but a list of lists, and formats it into what you see here, right? If you were to open this with an Excel spreadsheet, what we just did, it would open it up in this manner. It would create the Excel spreadsheet for you in that manner, right? What we just did right here, here's how it would look like if you opened it in Excel spreadsheet, right? But we didn't. We opened it within our VS Code, so it looked a little bit different. But you're able to find different ways of manipulating stuff. Here is using the MyDict. This one uses it doesn't use MyDict because it's not a dictionary, it's just a list of lists. They can use right row, right? Here they took the fields, they passed in as the first row. It didn't use the headers because it wasn't a dict object, right? So they manually used just the right row. So there's a lot of good information out here if you want to check out Geeks for Geeks. It's a pretty good website as well to learn Python stuff. Cool. I should probably add this to the lesson. Let me add this. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. All right. Improvement for next class. Cool. So that takes care of that. We're gonna go ahead and move forward. The next assignment is going to be your file file.py. All right, so go ahead and take about, let's actually check it out. Let's see how difficult this one is. File sum. So you're gonna write a function named file sum that takes as a parameter the name of a text file that contains a list of numbers, one to a line like this. Right, so this is a list of numbers. The function should sum the values in the file and write the sum, just that number, to a text file named sum.txt. Okay, that's not too bad. It says if the function can't find the file containing a list of numbers, throw a file not found error. Which you guys already saw, it'll write it for you. Still try the try and except block, and then except being except file not found error, right? Try that. This doesn't look like a hard one, so we'll take 10 minutes on this one. So 6:55. Let's reconvene at 7:05. All right. Can you guys see my screen? It was a rookie mistake. I wasn't even calling the function. Stupid. All right. So here, don't ignore this. I don't know what I was doing. I misread the problem at first. But so we had to create a function that's supposed to take in a file name, read through the file name, which will have a bunch of different numbers. As we read through it, we're supposed to grab the information, add it to a total, and then save it into a new file, which will be the sum. Right? And in the event that that file doesn't exist, it's supposed to raise an error. But exactly what I thought was gonna happen happened. I don't know if it's like a new thing since the curriculum was built. But whenever the file doesn't exist and you're writing into it, it creates the file for you. So I wasn't running into no issues for not having an existing file. I'm going to assume that the slides are just a little outdated. It's probably a new thing. What is this file sum?
So I just did my try outside of it, and if the file's not there, it throws the error for me.
Do you mind showing us?
Yeah, not at all.
'Cause I have yet to encounter that issue. Let me stop sharing.
All right. All right, can you see it? I'm on a different computer than normal. This is what I did. I just tried it, and then so say I changed this file to fill1. Nothing. I just get the file not found error. Then if it's correct, then it runs it, and then I can open up file1, and it sorry, sum. I can open up sum, and it gives me the sum, which is backed up here.
My apologies. I misread the question as well. Again, I was checking if sum did not exist, sum.txt.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair
All right.
enough. That makes sense because reading it should raise the issue. Like, if it doesn't exist, like it can't read a file. But if it doesn't exist and you're trying to write into a file, it would create it for you. Okay. But yeah, good stuff. It's been a long day. I got 3 hours sleep. All right. Don't judge me.
Yeah, I know you were up at 4 a.m. that one day dropping those videos.
Yeah, you guys be see the stamps of when I'm up. I tend to be either up late or really early. Last night I slept at 2. I woke up at 5 for my general health appointment, which when you guys go through your VA, that's the largest appointment. And that took like 3 hours, an hour and a half away from me. And then I had to get X-rays. It's been a long day now. But anyway, so yeah, I did this wrong. I did the try and accept block on the right. It should have been up here. So this should have been try. And then add this here. They should have been accept file not found error. So this is a already pre-built error, Cody. So you shouldn't have had to create it. But it's okay. Unless you want to override something. Let's get rid of that. And then print. So I should have done the try and accept block on the file name to figure out if the file even exists. And then opened up a TXT file, write into it and write the total. So make sure this works. This does create the file, but let's go ahead and add something that does not exist. What if I did files? File not found. So it did raise the error essentially, right? Or if it caught it, it printed it out. Let's see if I don't print anything out. It still runs through the sum.txt. So maybe they should have been added within here as well. Okay, and then here we see it did raise an error, especially in the block, my bad. Okay, so I would want to raise file not found error instead. There we go. So if I didn't do that, if I just put pass, it won't do anything. So I caught the file not found error, but I want to raise it because it didn't raise it for me. It just didn't do anything. So by raising it, it actually shows it in my terminal, right? But cool. But essentially, we are opening up the file name that's given to us, which is number file. After we open it, we're going through every single line of that file, which essentially looks just like this. It's still good practice to do dot strip. So dot strip should be here. So as we grab every single item, we strip the oh, that's not a good practice. But dot strip is here. So the number that we grab from the file name, we strip it, convert it into a float. And the reason we converted it to a float was because it makes no sense to convert it into an integer when you have numbers like 14.999. It won't really be able to convert it to an integer. You might get an issue. So converting it to a float, having total as a float as it is, will give you a more accurate total. So we convert it to a float, so we're able to add it to already existing float. And after we get our total, then we want to open up a TXT file called sum, write into it, and then just write the total in there, remembering that we want to convert it into string. It is good practice to put a new line here. Yeah. So add the new line and then raise the file not found error if it encounters that file not found error. Pretty straightforward. But yeah, so time is 7:18. Let's take a 10-minute break before we continue on, and then we'll continue with the lecture. So we did file sum. The next one is going to be nobledata.py. Let's go here because this is my answer key. So nobledata.py, you're going to write a class named nobledata that reads the nobles.json file and allows the user to search that data. Pretty standard. You guys already have some good ideas how to work with classes and objects, creating the init method that reads the file. As you guys already saw from working with Python, there's things that you can do in the init method. It's not just data members. You can actually write actual code in there, declare other stuff, and actually write some code. So within your init method, you're gonna do the whip open, right? Go through that functionality and then and whatnot. and store it into a data member. So after you open there, you're going to be storing some information as a data member. Any data members of the Noble class must be private. And then you create a method named search Noble that takes as parameters a year in the category and returns a sorted list in normal English dictionary order of the surnames for the winners. This was actually a tough assignment because you had to parse through all the information. It get very confusing. It's actually not that tough. I think the next one is pretty tough. No, the SAT data is a little tough. But this should keep you a little bit busy. So time is 7:42. I'll give you guys 20 minutes on this one because it's a little bit more information to go over. All right, so the assignment was to create a class that's going to allow us to grab the information from Noble data and then find specifically a certain category, right? So here's what the JSON looked like. At the very top, we have the overall top level is a dictionary, right, with key value pairs, like prizes. And if you scroll down, they're all prizes with different years, categories, and then the people that actually obtained them, right? So we import JSON because we're working with a JSON file, so we're gonna need the JSON methods like load and dump. We create our class Noble data with the init method. Here in our init method we have oh, I think I missed something. What did I miss? It seems like I didn't create data member. I mean, it was preferred, but I didn't have to. Oh, I did. I created the self._ Noble data. So this is my answer key that I created like a long time ago. So I'm just reading through it. All right, so we open up the JSON file, reading it as Noble file, and then I create a data member where I'm storing all the information that I'm receiving from the JSON object, right? It saves into Noble data, privatized. Essentially now I'm able to parse through it with my Python code. And then I create my method, which is gonna be search data that takes in a year and a category. My bad. Call it search Noble, right? Takes in a year and a category. The example here being the year 2001, whoever received an award from economics, right? So we grab the year and we convert it into a string to ensure it matches with our data. And then with the category, we format it to lower. We see that in our data here. In the event that one of these categories was for whatever reason capitalized or titled, it ensured that it was always formatted. Or it inputted capitalized, right? So like right here is what we see economics being capitalized when passed in the method. After that, I have a list of surnames that is empty, which is where I'm going to store all the information that I grab. And then I start looping through the Noble data, and you see I'm grabbing the prizes, which is the top level key. And it seems like the only key too. All right, so that means if I want to grab all the information which saved in the value of prizes, I have to use bracket notation, grab the prizes, and that allows me to loop through a list, right? Because the value of prizes is a list of other dictionaries. So then I do if price and I grab the year is equal to the year and price, I grab the category is equal to the category that we're looking for, then I want to do something, right? So for a awardee in prize laureates, so I grab, for example, if it's supposed to be 2001, where's it at? Let's check out. It's not too far out. 2006, 1999, 2000. We're looping through it. We find 2001, which is right here. So we find it 2001, and then we look for category, which is economics, right here. Then if these two match, that means I want to actually grab the Lorette, or however you pronounce it, and actually get the information within its value pair, right? So if those two match, I can actually check who won. So I do for a Wardy and prize Lorette, because we see here it's another list. The value is a list of objects. So I want to loop through it. And then I append the surname, right? So I grab a Wardy because a list of objects. So I'm using the surname key in the bracket notation, and I grab Akerlof, Spence, and Stiglitz. Right, so this should return these three surnames. I append to my list of surnames. I use sorted to just sort them. Right, that goes with, where was that? What you call it? Where was it? Said, there you go. Return a sorted list in normal English dictionary order of the surnames for the winners in that category, and I just return it. Pretty straightforward. I create an object of Noble data, so I have to instantiate it, and then once it's instantiated, I'm printing the result that comes back from our method search Noble, passing the two arguments. And now if we run this file, we see here we get the result of Akerlof, Spence, and Stiglitz, right? Pretty cool. Yeah. So were all of you guys able to complete it? This one get stuck, and if you did, where'd you get stuck at?
I was just working through being able to basically your lines 14 to 17. But I mean, yeah, so once I was working through that, but so that's where I was.
Yeah, it seems to be that if when you're working with a lot of this data, it can get very confusing very quickly, right? Because it's nested. We see the top levels of dictionary with a key being prices. Its value is a list, and this list have a dictionary with key value pairs, some of them being strings as values, and then we have Lorette's. Its value is a list of another object, right? And the key value pairs are strings. So it's very easy to get confused with these different levels. And it's a skill that you acquire just by looking at data over and over again. So don't feel too bad if you are still struggling with trying to understand it. The more you see it, the easier it will become to read with time. And honestly, the biggest help is the indentation of the way it's nested. So if you're wondering what level it's at, just use this indentation, right? So this is the top level, right? So there's nothing that comes before that. The next thing within this dictionary we know is this next bracket, which is prices. So if you ever want to see, well, what other key value pair is at this level, you just follow the exact same what you call it, line, right? And you see how I was able to click that piece of code, that bracket, and I'm scrolling, and I don't reach any other key value pair at this level besides prices and its value of lists. All right, so I know that's the next level, and then it goes into this value, which is a list. The top level here being what you call it, a dictionary, multiple dictionaries. Right, here's one. This all one dictionary. Here's a comma that separates the next one. Yeah, so using that is kind of what assists you with trying to figure out where the breaks are at and where it starts nesting further. All right, so use these to your advantage. It's probably the hardest part of this assignment, trying to understand all the data that you're taking in, right? But it only gets easier with time, I promise you that. Cool. So moving on. So that was noble data.py. We got two more before we finish off the night. So let's try to work through these, and then we'll cut a little bit early if we have time. So here's SAT data.py. That is going to be, let's see, let's check it out. Oh, this is going to be a little tough. I think it's a little tough for most people. Essentially, let's format this. For this project, you'll import the JSON module like before. You're still working with a JSON file. You see that here. You're gonna write class very similar to how you did this last assignment. That reads your JSON file and writes the data to a text file in CSV format. So you're taking a JSON file and then writing it into a CSV file. Right, CSV file is a very simple format, right? You're already tracking that, the comma separation values. And then if you see in the data inside the SAT data assignment, you're gonna have the CSV file and the JSON. You're looking for a specific item in here, right? A lot of this data here, up to a certain point, is going to be absolutely useless to you. So just keep that in mind, right? I'm not even going to give you any kind of hints because I want to make sure that you guys start learning how to read it. There should be a link somewhere around here. Is it this? No, where's the link? There's another way of viewing this. Let me see if I can find it for y'all. Oh, here it is. No, it's not. I was wrong. Well, yeah, so let's close these up. So write class name is SAT data that reads the SAT.json file and writes the data to a text file in CSV format. Your class should have a name method that reads the file and stores it in whatever data member. So very similar to how we just did earlier, right? Open the information, save it into a data member that's privatized. And then you have a method that you're supposed to declare called save as CSV. As a parameter, you're gonna take a list of district burial numbers, bureau, and save the CSV file that looks like the SAT College Board CSV file. So it should look like this, right? One thing that will tell you, small disclaimer, look at line 23. There's nothing here, right? So that means you might get data that is empty. So be aware of that so you can best format it. So it says a CSV file that looks like the SAT College Board, but with only the rows that correspond to the DBNs in the list, and also the row of column headers, right? You may assume that all DBNs list past your method are present in the JSON file. They must be sorted in ascending order by DBN. Yeah. Let me see if I can find something for you guys. There's a different way of viewing this. I don't know if it helps. I'm going to GitHub. I'm pretty sure it's part of the GitHub repo. If I go to Slack, FOP, GitHub repo. What lesson is this? 11? 10.
It's 11.
11.
11. SAT data. I don't know if it helps. It helped me when I was doing it, because very confusing. But if you go to the GitHub repo, you'll find the actual formatted file. It looks like this: DBN, school names, number of test takers. I was able to read it a little bit better than the file, the CSV file in VS Code. So maybe check that out if it helps you. If you need to remember where I got this from, it's in Slack channel. It's pinned at the very top. But yeah, I mean, you can check this here. If you don't want to, that's fine too. But this helped me just kind of visualize a little bit more. The VS Code file was, especially for you guys, since you guys are struggling to understand all the data, this might seem a little intimidating looking at it like this. So yeah, so try that out. Time is 8:19. This was actually a doozy. So I'll give you guys until 8:45, and then we'll go over the assignment and call it for the night. All right, we're gonna go ahead and talk through this one. I'm going to share my screen. Right. So at the very top here, we are importing our JSON file. Standard, we're working, or the JSON module, we're working with the JSON file, right? We create our init method that takes in the name of the file. We use that with our open statement that we're going to be reading through as file. We then create a temporary member or data member, which we do not set in stone, just a variable. That's going to allow us to load that file so we can kind of parse through it. And then what I have here is a formatted SAT data, right? And the reason was so we can kind of get it to how we want it to. We want to have something formatted. And if you guys remember, on the SAT College Board, there was some information that was coming back empty. I wanted to avoid that situation. And we did some kind of logic here to kind of get around the fact if we do get back some empty values. So with that in mind, we went ahead and looped through our data. We see here on row 9 for row in all data, and then we use bracket notation to grab the key data. Well, let's look at our JSON file. This is the JSON file we have. Now to parse through the information, the top key here, or essentially the top level is a dictionary, right? Because it is a JSON, it's a JavaScript object notation. The very first key is meta, right? Well, do I even want to go into meta? Well, with taking this into account, we look at this top level here and we scroll down until we find the next key at the very top level, and we find data or data, whatever you want to call it, right? We essentially want to get this information. Everything prior to this was essentially useless to us. It gave us some structure. If you go through it, you might find some stuff like here where it tells us how the data is actually structured. But besides that, we don't really need anything in the data value. I'm sorry, the meta value. We want the data, whatever. Right. So we scroll all the way down to data, and we find ourselves at this point of the JSON file with a key of data and a value of a list of lists, right? The value is a list of lists. So I know once I go into the bracket notation, I'm gonna have to loop through the data list to find what I want, and then even loop through those lists as well. So I am going into the data. This returns to me a value, which we just established. The value that's going to return is a list of lists. Therefore, I know I need to loop through it, right? So for row and all data inside of the data key, I want to grab that information and I want to format it, right? So the way that I format it was, I joined the information that was gonna get back from here, right? And I joined it with a comma to replicate how it should look like in the CSV file. And then I joined the information I got back with that. Now, the information I got was very specific, right? We were looking for everything that comes after this point, right? So if looking at the list, at the index, it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. At index 8 was the first item I wanted, which is the DBN that represents the CSV file here, right? We were looking for something like DBN, school name, number of test takers, and this looks pretty straightforward to what our information should look like. If you did look into the metadata a little bit, you would have encountered that as well. There, like I showed you guys earlier, there was a point where it showed you how or what the information is. Where's that again? And that's kind of what the metadata was saying to us. If you read a little bit about it, what the first item was, and then everything forward. Where is it at? Okay, I think it's this. Right, so the ID, school name above that. Okay, so here we go. Here's the format, right? The first item was a DBN. It tells you the DBNs, and then a school name, number of test takers, critical reading mean. It explains to you the data types that are below here. And that's kind of what we use to figure out what we're looking for. And I know it's in index 8 and forward. So while formatting, we're essentially grabbing that. For every single row we get, we're having to grab the 8th index in that row for the DBN. Then the 9th one is the school name, and so on and so forth. They want things that are for sure, were the DBN and the school name. So I kept those standard. You know, this is strict. Every single one, as I was parsing through the data, not one failed to have a DBN and a school name. But the ones that were coming back empty were everything that came afterwards. And we can find that out as we scroll down. We see, like right here, right? There's certain ones that were no. And that might have caused an issue when you were trying to format your stuff. So I did some comprehension here, where the first item was DBN, then its school name. The next item was the number of test takers, which was obviously at index 10. And the comprehension I did here was return an empty string if whatever is in row 10 is equal to none, else return to me what's at index 10, right? So this little comprehension here is going to check. It's almost like an if-else statement in a single line. This is very common in JavaScript. If you guys started off with JavaScript, have you guys ever done this before? I forgot the proper term for this. It's some form of comprehension. But it's an if-else statement on one line. So the first item within this syntax is what you want to return if it is something, else return this. Does that make sense to a certain point? It's essentially just an if-else statement. You're telling it what to return if it's whatever condition you're setting. And if it doesn't meet that condition, just return what's after the else statement. Right. And that's essentially what I'm doing here is if there's nothing there, I'm just going to return an empty string. Why? Because I might encounter a problem if I'm returning null. And I'm trying to format it. So I did this to avoid any issues. Once that formatted row returns to me how I want it, and it's a formatted string separated with a comma, then at that point, I grabbed my empty dictionary, formatted SAT data. I set the DBN as the key, which allows me to grab it later on by DBNs. And I set the entire row that's now been formatted as the value, right? And then I was able to set the entire now formatted dictionary into my self._data member, right? So now I know that this data member has a formatted dictionary that holds just DBN, school names, number of test takers, etc. in the exact same format that I'm going to want to put it in my CSV file, right? So I did all that formatting while opening the JSON file, right? Now, once that logic was established, I was able to create my save as CSV method, which took in a list of DBNs. We see that here on line 26, what it looks like. I think I added this one. I don't remember if that was part of the README. Does your README have an empty string on one of these? For example, I'll just check. It did not. Okay, I think I added it. I was testing stuff out when I did this. But let's get rid of this. Essentially, this should have been the example you guys were given in the README, like this right here. So I added that to the you're supposed to take in that entire list, right? And then with that list, you're gonna go ahead and open a file called dbn.csv. You're gonna write into it, and we see here out file.write. And I wrote in the first row that I wanted to, which is my headers. I wrote that in manually, added a new line, and then following that first line, I went ahead, looped through the entire list, checked if it's in my formatted dictionary, which is stored in self.data, and then I went ahead and rolled that into my CSV file, right? Because it was already formatted, all I had to do was just attach the entire thing, right? No formatting needed here. Just grab it if it's in my list and separate by a new line and then return. And then we can see that here. If we run this, oh, this is not the right one. Python, I think I think we're supposed to print this out, return. No, we don't have to return anything. It should be in my DBN CSV. Yeah, here we go. It should have created the CSV file. And here we see the formatted, right? We have the header that I added there and then my formatted items. Pretty cool, straightforward. Any questions about how that was done? Anything confusing? Cool. That's going to conclude class for today. We only have like 8 minutes left. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.